At the start of the year, I was going to make a video on Pokemon, specifically about the TCG. I grew up with Pokemon like most kids, and also like most kids, I grew to love it. The cards, the anime, the games, mangas, and scholastic books. The videos I watched on YouTube were Pokemon card videos, and that ultimately became the start of this channel, going by WWE/Pokemon fan in 2014. Some fun channel lore for you. With that video, I was going to go over my history with the franchise and how I ultimately was starting to fall out of love with it. The reason I was beginning to stop caring was because of the controversy surrounding specifically the TCG this past year, with all the scalpers and fake fans swarming. In January 2025, the set Prismatic Evolutions released, and up to that point, I was heavily invested in Pokemon. Not as much as I was in the X and Y era, but I was still purchasing a few packs of every set that had released since Sword and Shield, just like how I was in the X and Y days as a kid. However, those times were all before the scalpers rose, but with Prismatic Evolutions, it was almost like it was out of nowhere. You couldn't go into Target or GameStop anymore because the cards would be completely off the shelves, even the damn cardboard containers they came shipped in, which as a side note is fucking crazy, but I digress. If you were lucky enough to go into a store and see them, some scalper was already ahead of you with every product in their cart. Then you try and find it online and it's either triple the price because of the scalpers selling, or the online retail sites would crash because people made bots to mass purchase products. And for me, it just wasn't worth it anymore. I never bought in bulk or even went for complete sets. All I did was a few packs, a max of like 8, and I call it good. And I wasn't about to pay triple the price for a product that I can get in a store for $100 less. I'd rather put money towards things I can actually use or enjoy, like video games or tattoos on my sweet sexy body. However, this video never came to light. I wrote it and it was actually damn near done, but I dropped it in favor of a couple other projects I was doing at the time. As time went on in the year, things got a little bit better in regards to the stock. Retailers started putting limits on cards purchased, websites handled bots a little bit better, and I was finally able to get Prismatic Evolution on Switch 2 launch day of all places. Even with this though, I still wasn't feeling the magic that I had once did. All the offense to everyone doing this, but I felt like a fucking loser standing outside a GameStop to buy Pokemon cards with nerds who don't shower when I actually shower and smell great. Coconut lotion, sugar scrubs, St. Laurent cologne, take care of yourself and shit. But speaking on the Switch 2, it would actually be the Switch 2 that, while I didn't know it at the time, would end up reviving my love for Pokemon, and the actual point of this video. Now going back a little bit in time to November 2022, the latest generation of Pokemon released, being Scarlet and Violet, and like every other Pokemon game, I got it launch day, but I didn't play it launch day this time. The reason I didn't play it was because of the performance issues, which plagued the game for pretty much its entirety on Switch 1. With my genius brain I have, I decided to hold out until playing the Switch 2 release, since I knew it would be sooner rather than later before that console came out. That wasn't really on my mind though. I had plenty of other games to play and I knew it'd be worth the wait to play the game on a console that wasn't as strong as a toaster, so waiting is what I did. The one thing I did do in that nearly 3-year span was get better at buying games and building a backlog, which Scarlet and Violet would fall under. However, when the Switch 2 finally came out, my backlog got reduced, and after a good period with Mario Kart World, the stars aligned for me to play Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. For one, my friends were all wanting to play. We had all put off playing the game, but they all wanted to play, so quick shoutouts to my friends Kevin, Edgar, Super Tendo on YouTube if you like that, and Casper, who you guys might know for doing the beautiful graphics on the channel, including this one. Next, as I had mentioned a few seconds ago, my backlog was in a good spot, specifically with the Switch. I narrowed it down mostly to longer games such as this title, so it was more than a good time to rip off that band-aid. And lastly, as a part of the Switch 2, Game Freak and Nintendo released a day 1 patch for Scarlet and Violet, improving pretty much all the performance issues the game had on Switch 1. So I really had no better time to play the games than now, and when I did, I was absolutely hooked. At first my idea was just to speed through it, and while I guess I technically ended up doing that, I can't lie, I had the time of my life. There was so much I enjoyed about this title, and it all made what would have been speeding through the game to progress through my backlog into not only one of my favorite experiences of the year, but the thing that brought back my love for Pokemon. So for the remainder of the video, I want to give my thoughts on Scarlet and Violet, as well as talk about what it meant getting that passion for Pokemon back. Longest pre-story of all time. The first thing I want to talk about is the performance of the game. If you played it on Switch 1, this is probably the most important part to you, and I can happily say the performance is great in this title. I personally think the visuals look really good here, especially as I was already a fan of the art direction in the game. I've heard complaints from people over the visuals, but I truly believe it's just them not being fans of the art direction, which are two different things. Then the actual performance, I had no issues here. No lag, no stutters, no oddball glitches, everything felt like a perfect running game, so major points to the Switch 2 there. Now tying visuals into the next point, I love Paldea as a region. Everything visually in the city looked amazing. Choosing the region to be based off of Spain was one of the smartest moves they could have made this generation. The architecture of places like the Academy or even the homes at the very beginning of the game all looked great. The cities like Lavincia or Glacedo also looked wonderful, even if it was different from the Spain aesthetic. Additionally, Game Freak did a good job at integrating the culture with things like the character dialogue as an example. To keep the transition train rolling, let me talk about the characters. In Pokemon, I've honestly never cared about the story. I just didn't ever see this game as a story-heavy franchise, so I never expected any lore from it. I was expecting the same thing here, but I was pleasantly surprised that there were multiple great storylines in this entry. Obviously, the best story was Arvin's, both of his parents being the professors of the respective title you chose, struggling with his emotions towards them while also trying his hardest to take care of his Mastiff, who was incredibly sick, was really endearing, and by the end you not only root for him but also feel kinda sorry for him with the ending. Then there's the Team Star storyline, who at first seem like nothing more than this generation's grunts and bad guys, but upon hearing each member's origin story you get to learn that they were really just bullied at the academy and left, being seen as the misfits, so they took on that role by association. Characters like Ray, who became my favorite of the bunch, is actually a sweet girl who was bullied because she was the new pretty girl at school. Despite this, she still showed kindness, even accepting one of her bullies into Team Star. She would also often overpush herself in favor of protecting the ones around her, which I found very sweet and relatable. But then the other character of note is the rival Nimona. I've seen a lot of back and forth on her, but I personally loved her. Her rich upbringing never swayed her from her interests or efforts, and she quickly became the best trainer in the academy, which caused for people to make fun of her and say she was a suck-up, but all she wanted was a friend to battle with. Her enjoyment of battling never felt annoying to me, which I feel is pretty rare for these games. Overall, I'd say if there was one defining area of Scarlet and Violet, I would say it's actually the characters. Now for gameplay. The core Pokemon formula never changes, but there's a lot of new things in other places as well as enhancements on previous editions. My favorite thing they introduced was the test for the gyms. In previous Pokemon games, you do the same solve puzzle to make your way to the gym leader while fighting some trainers inside the gym along the way. However, in Scarlet and Violet, they switched up the formula by putting these little tests before you can fight the gym leader. This could include things like pushing an olive to an end goal, sliding down a snowy mountain, doing a rat battle, all kinds of things. I really like the change in formula here, as it made every gym feel unique and special compared to the previous games. Things like Terra Raids and wild Pokemon encounters are also all improved. Terra Raids now load without taking 1,000 years, while the quantity of Pokemon you encounter in the wild is also increased without the frame rate taking a bump. I will say the one bad thing is Pokemon running up on you will sometimes get you stuck in one spot for a little bit, even if you run away from them, but beyond that, I don't have any complaints with it. The new gimmick this time around is terrestrializing, and I think it's alright. It's no Mega Evolution, but at this rate I don't believe nothing will ever be like that. For what terrestrializing is though, I think it's pretty cool. I enjoyed the different designs for the types, and having technically 3 types for your Pokemon was a neat addition. Now if you remember towards the start of the video, I said that my plan was to rush through the game, and that ended up kinda being true. What I did was abuse the hell out of the Terra Raids and pad rare candies. Terra Raids, depending on the star level, will give insane XP boosts, which I ended up using, though by the end of the Elite Four I was about 35 levels below the trainers, so it ended up being okay. Now this game isn't perfect by any means, and I did have my issues with it. My biggest issue was the character customization. I don't understand how X and Y came out well over a decade ago, yet it is still the best game for character customization, and that was the game that introduced the concept to the franchise. Instead, you're locked to one of 4 school uniforms, which would make sense if you're staying in the school, but you're not really there past the tutorial, so why lock us out of it? Instead, you're locked to one of 4 school uniforms, which would make sense if you're staying in the school, but you're not really there past the tutorial, so why lock us into it? You're going across lakes, mountains, various cities, yet you're stuck with the same outfit, only being able to change minor things like shoes and gloves. It's a little hard to criticize the game when its biggest issue being performance was fixed, but there are still negatives to the game, as there is with any game. While I personally felt like there was some challenge in this title, others believe it's still too easy. Dialogue is something I saw a lot of complaints about, but I honestly just used the fast dialogue option, so I didn't really mind, plus I enjoyed the story. But with all of this, the last thing that I have to answer is the very title of the video. As I mentioned at the start of the video, I was beginning to fall out of love with Pokemon. The scalpers made what was once a fun hobby into a financial nightmare. I'm just not going to wait hours outside of a store until it opens for the ability to open cards that'll go in a binder. I'm also not going to pay Scum of the Year scalpers triple the money for something that will go in said binder until I open them up to look at the cards again. It's just not worth it. But these people truly did make the hobby and franchise as a whole have a stain on it for me. But after playing Scarlet and Violet, I was able to see the franchise in that same light that I did as a kid. And the simple answer to it? I had fun. I didn't use the internet as influence, I ignored all discussions surrounding the game beyond what was said in my friend group, and just used what I felt for my thoughts. Pokemon, whether it's the mainline games, the cards, pretty much anything, always has a bad discussion surrounding it online, so to have a clear headspace for once was nice. I played the game how I wanted to play it. Yes, I abused the Terra Raids to level up, but there was kind of a satisfaction in one-shotting things. And the best part is I didn't even do it enough, because when it came time to the Elite Four, I was getting my ass handed to me. Doing all this, playing how I wanted to play, and tuning out the noise from other places, it reminded me of when I was a kid. It reminded me of when I got Alpha Sapphire for Christmas 2014 and I sat in my blue beanbag chair for 3 days straight beating it. It reminded me of every Pokemon pack I opened back then to even currently. It reminded me of reading the encyclopedia books in school during reading time with my friends. All these things had fun in common, and that's what this game reminded me of. The trading card game may be in a rough spot currently, but if you can separate it from the rest of the franchise, you'll find that love again like I did. But anyways, that was all from me. If you've played Scarlet and Violet, let me know what you thought about the game down below, as well as what you thought of the video. If you haven't played it, has my video influenced you to try it? Also let me know down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.